Have you ever loved somebody so deeply to the point that you were terrified to let him down? Welcome to Parashat Ekev. We arrived to this portion. I'm so excited about this portion because we just read about Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 last week about the Shema Israel. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. One of the most important prayers in Judaism. And now we move to the following chapter, chapter 7, verse 12. It's very interesting what Moses says there. Let's read it together. And because you listen to these rules and keep and do them, the Lord your God will keep with you the covenant and steadfast love that he swore to your fathers. And that is so important. It's a covenant of love. That's something we forget about. We read so many rules and regulations and statutes and commandments that we forget that is God initiating this covenant with Israel. It's a covenant of love. And that's why the Shema Israel, to love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might, comes from the love of God pouring onto Israel and onto us today. So today I want to just go deeper into this parasha that is called Ekev, which actually is translated here in English in the version I read with because, but actually the real meaning is if. Like if you keep these rules. And that is the if that is so important in order to respond to the love of God towards us. So it's so important to read this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12 that says, And now Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. That's again, it sounds like a repetition of the previous chapter, but actually saying something different. Like Moses is actually wording in Hebrew like it's something simple. But we know it's not. We know today it's not simple. But at the same time, that's what he says. And there is a combination between, in this just verse, there is the combination of loving God and fearing God, which in our mentality seems to be two different concepts, but in biblical ways is exactly the same thing. We fear God and we love God. And that is the point. It's not to be afraid. It's not to be terrified of God. We all know that. It's not even just respect. It's like to love somebody to the point that you want to please him, that you want to respect him, that he's your king. Most of the time we focus on God as being as a best friend, nothing wrong with that. But firstly, he's our king, he's our redeemer, he's our savior, he's our God. And we need to approach him with that kind of love and with that kind of respect and that kind of awe that brings us to understand who God is. And I think it's not just about the commandment. The commandment is not always the way you show love. You show love by being there in the presence of God and enjoying the presence of God. Remember who he is and recognize that he is God. Don't treat God as he's just your friend. Don't treat God as a human, but God is God. And there is no other God apart from the God of Israel. So today, when we look at the concept of love and fear, we just need to bring the things together. And it's interesting to notice that the word ahava, love, is only twice in the book of Exodus, only twice in the book of Leviticus, none, not even once in the book of Numbers, and 23 times in Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy. So that brings the book as a book of love, a covenant of love that brings that together. So today, I want you to recognize God, to bring the fear of God and the love of God together. Do not separate them. I want you to hear, listen carefully, I want you to hear the voice of the Spirit of God through Moses, through the prophet, and through Yeshua, that says, love God, worship God, fear God, serve God with all your heart and with all your soul.